Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Nama Pranavathaya Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The clear message from the Upanishad is there is no nanatvam, there is no multiplicity, there is no duality. And sometimes when we think about it, we hear these Mahavakyas, and the definition of the Mahavakya itself is that which explains aikyam, oneness. Oneness between what and what? We start with these three ideas. I, the self, Jagat, which is all the other things here which are non-I, because my I, when I start, is the individual, the one who is in this Sharira, the Karya Karana Sanghata, that I, and all the non-I, living and non-living, known and unknown, in this world, in this Jagat, on the earth, elsewhere in the cosmos. And the third element, who created them? Who runs them so intelligently? Who ensures that the planets don't collide? Who ensures that on the earth we have conditions which are conducive for living? Although as human beings, we try our best to make the conditions difficult. I think we've already done it to Delhi and that region, making it more and more difficult. Maybe human life will adapt to that kind of thing. So in a few generations, Delhiites might find that they like that atmosphere. And then they come to a clean place, they can't survive. It's like, when people are told by the doctor that they should avoid sugar. So they start drinking black coffee. Initially, they just don't like it, but because they want coffee, somehow they will drink without sugar. Slowly, they will get used to the drinking coffee without sugar. I don't know how many of you drink black coffee. Then milk is also bad. Don't put milk in there. So they will start drinking black, sugarless coffee. Over a period of time, they get so used to the sugarless black coffee that if you put sugar in their coffee or milk in their coffee, they can't drink. This is what is going to happen to people in Delhi and other places. They come to a clean place like Ashavidyalaya or other places in the world, I don't know, where the AQI is 30, 35. They will have to go to the doctor and say, I can't breathe. Because they're so used to that polluted air. We are damaging ourselves. To date, after so many years, Delhi still hasn't figured out what is causing it. Sometimes they say it is crop burning, sometimes they say it is traffic, too many cars and scooters and so on, or whatever. Whatever combination of factors should be dealt with, not being dealt with. So all the conditions that have been created for life to exist, the adaptability that has been given to life, there must be an intelligence behind it. There must be a power behind it. There must be knowledge behind it. And we give it a name Ishvara. All knowledge, all power, all intelligence. And there must be consciousness. Knowledge means consciousness. Actually, the word consciousness, unfortunately, has other connotations in our normal speech. So, you know what happens if you say the person is in coma, he is not conscious. Does that mean that Atma, which we're calling consciousness, is not there? That's not true. So, a better word is probably knowledge. Oh, there must be something. So, we have this I, the non-I, which is everything other than I in this, that is there in this Jagat. Some I know, some I don't know. And the creator, preserver of this, the all knowledge, all power, which you call Ishvara. That's how we start. And then we read, when we read other Upanishads, no, there is also two streams. There is a Sukshma stream and there is a Sthula stream. How do you connect the two? And what is the connection between them and I? What is the connection between them and Ishvara, Parameshvara? So you have a whole structure that tells you about that. And then there is, what it says is that there is this all knowledge, all power, whom we call Parameshvara. Where did he come from? Where did he get the knowledge? So we say, look, there is only one Brahman. That Brahman, through a concept you introduced, that process of introducing such a concept and negating it, called Adhyaropa Apavadha. You introduce a concept and gradually prove that that is not possible, therefore you reject it, negate it. In Latin, they call it reductio ad absurdum. I'm sure many of you have done that in your maths classes. You start by something and go on deriving it and find that it's absurd. You can't get this. So there is no Maya also. If there is no Maya, then all that is following from there has to have some form which is neither real nor is something which I can get away from saying this doesn't exist. So that is where the difference comes. When a Dvaitin looks at it, no, it is real. This body of mine is real. The world is real. Everything is real. We say it looks real. Because it has come from a assumed concept called Maya. Therefore, when we negate the whole thing, all of them get negated other than one Brahman. So we have this whole Sukshma, whole Sthula, and that Sukshma we call started from Hiranyagarbha. And the Sthula came from the Hiranyagarbha. We call it Virat. And from there came all the Sukshma and then all the Sthula. And then when they combined, we called it this Sukshma individually, we call Taijasa. So in each being there is Taijasa. And the sthula component of each being, each individual, we call Vaishvanaraha. This is the way we looked at it. And then we came up with these concepts and this thing saying, okay, but I don't know this Parameshwara because I can't see, I can't feel, I can't touch, I can only infer Parameshwara. This Hiranyagarbha, I can't feel. Virat, I can't even imagine. Arjuna's description of Virat in the 11th chapter, how do you even imagine that? That is why you need special eyes, Divya Chakru, without beginning, without end, where everything is going in, everything is getting chewed up. Can't even imagine that. Our capacity to even imagine them is as difficult as trying to imagine a four-dimensional figure. So how do I deal with this? If that is the all-power, all-knowledge, from which Hiranyagarbha and later on Virat have appeared as though, how in the world am I going to try and figure it out? How am I even going to plead with that to help me figure it out? So from there we derive a whole lot of other superpowers, domain experts. We give them different names. There is a presiding deity for fire. Fire is representative of Rupa, first of the elements which you can see as a Rupa, which is Thula. There's a presiding deity for water. There's a presiding deity for every component of the Sharira. Every function of the Sharira, there's a functionary. And that function together has a presiding deity, a Devata. To whom I can pray individually for specific help. I can also understand if I have done a bit of study, otherwise I will stick with that and say my Ishta Devata is Krishna, that is there no more. But if I have done a little bit of vichara, I've done a little bit of studying, I understand Bhagavan says every one of these Ishta Devatas are only my agents to whom I have given some specialized strengths, specialized knowledge in a specific area. So for that area you pray, you don't have rain, you pray to Varuna Devata. Like that, your ears are bad, you pray to Dig Devata. But all these Devatas are my agents. Every prayer to any one of these Devata comes only to me, to Bhagavan, Parameshwara. And I in turn channel your request through them to you. All this process, remember, comes after Maya. Everything, including Hiranyagarbha and Virat and all the Devatas, comes after Maya. Now, anything that comes after Maya is what? Mithya. Anything that comes following Maya is Mithya. This is the way we look at it. So this Upanishad also takes up these Hiranyagarbha in two different ways, Virat in a couple of ways, all the Devatas. Devatas are ones which are effulgent beings, also called Devata. And they have, like I said, domain expertise. And therefore, they control, not control, they are helpful for all my senses. Jnanendriya, Karmendriya, all the Antakarana. And all of them, including Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, etc., whole set of devatas. All of them come after Maya. Maya is non-separate from Brahman. Maya is Brahman. There is no separate independent thing called Maya. Therefore, all of these things, Hiranyagarbha downwards, all of them are non-separate from Brahman. Beautiful. So, when Nachiketa asks, please tell me about that which transcends dharma, dharma, which transcends time, which transcends karma. Yamadharma Raja gets a list of mantras ending with etad vaitat. You take Hiranyagarbha is not separate from Brahman. From Hiranyagarbha came Virat, not separate from Brahman. From this down came all the presiding deities, Agni Devata, Vayu Devata, elemental, their presiding deities, all the functionaries, samashti functionaries of all functions, all of them are non-separate from Brahman. We use the word non-separate. We don't even say the same as, because that looks like a hard statement. Because for us, even as we understand this through Shravanam and Mananam, they are still perceptible individually, samashti-wise. Therefore, we say they are none of them different from Brahman. That which you asked for, it is that. Etad vaitat. If all of these I understand, because the Jagat, now all the non-I's I have accounted for. All of the Jagat originating from Hiranyagarbha. Some of them have Sukshma Sharira, some of them don't have Sukshma Sharira. All of them are non-separate from Brahman. Okay, I accept that. They don't have self-existence. But I exist, no? Nobody can deny I exist. Nobody can say I don't exist. Then you'd ask, who says I don't exist? Somebody says I don't exist means, what does it mean? That the person who's saying it doesn't exist. Then how is he saying anything? If I exist. Now we reduced everything else to Brahman, and there's only I. I is that Brahman. This is what the Upanishad is focusing on and bringing it down to. And that dispels the starting ignorance when I'd originally assumed that I am this Karyakarana Sanghata, this body, mind, sense complex, the individual combination of Sukshma, Sthula Sharira, combination of Taijasa and Vaishvanaraha. That is not I. That is non-self-existing. That is Brahman. Therefore, what is left is I, that is also Brahman. So each of these verses we see. In the first, I think 3, 4, and 5, we saw Antaryami Brahman. Antaryami Ishvara. That which is common, that which remains in all the three states of being, that which is the seer, hearer, etc., behind any hearing, seeing, etc., that which makes those possible. And then we went and in the last one, I think we saw Hiranyagarbha. Antaryami Ishvara. Hiranyagarbha is also Ishvara, is Brahman. And therefore, everything that follows from this is also the same. Karya being not different from Karana. Why are they not different? Karanatvat. It is a Karana, therefore it's not different. It's a Karya, therefore it's not different from the Karana. And then all those examples are given. Sadeva idamagra asit. Only Sat is there. Because everything else becomes non-self-existing. Ekameva Advitya Brahman. As many words in Chandogya it says. Mrittika eva satyam. In the universe of clay products, clay is the only satyam. In the universe of all products, tangible, intangible, there is only one satyam. And that satyam is you. Not easy. Because the moment at 7 o'clock I finish and go, I have to have breakfast. Doesn't change. I have to do this. I have to go to the gym. I have a problem in the office. Although it's a Saturday, I have to attend to that problem. It doesn't go away. So the transactional activities within this Jagat continue. And therefore, each time I contemplate upon the fact that that Brahman is the only thing and I have to be that, there's no other possibility, logically, analytically, and yet I get pulled into these things. The I that gets pulled into this thing is also part of the same non-self-existing mithya. It has to continue. So this tries to bring us to realize that Ishvara, samashti, totality of everything, if you take the totality of all functionaries, totality of all functionaries and put them the totality in the samashti, that totality is Ishvara like an ocean. That is non-separate from water. All the individual waves and surfs and tsunamis and everything else that is there is non-separate from the Ishvara, ocean, non-separate from Brahman. This is the message that is trying to give. So we saw in the previous verse, Hiranyagarbha as the Prathamaja, Purvam Tapaso Jatam, that came before all the elements in their Sukshma form. That means all the Sukshma elements came from which? Hiranyagarbha. It looks as though that Hiranyagarbha entered into the Sthula Sharira, Guham Pravishyatishthantam. Yo bhute bhir vyapashyata. Thee who can see this Hiranyagarbha, and recognize the non-separateness from Brahman, that Brahman is what you asked for, and that person who recognizes is also the same. Etad vaitad. Continuing on the same argument, same thinking, Yamadharmaraja continues. So, in connecting this, Acharya says, Kincha.
Kincha.
Meaning, moreover, Kincha ya pranena sambhavati.
या
या
प्राणेन
प्राणेन
संभवति
संभवति
Atid devataamayi.
अतिथिदेवतामयि
अतिदेवतामयि
Guham pravishya tishthantim.
गुहां
गुहां
प्रविश्य तिष्ठन्ति
प्रविष्टन्ति
या भूते भिर्व्यजायत.
या
या
भूतेर्व्यजायत
भूतिर्व्यजायत
एतद् वैतत्.
एतद्वैतत्
एतद्वैतत्
Hiranyagarbha continues. And there are further definitions of Hiranyagarbha. The second line is the same as in the previous mantra. Guham pravishya tishthantim Hiranyagarbha, and as though enters into the sthula sharira in what is described as guha. Essentially, we've seen this, you have to understand, Guham pravishya tishthantim means that in the Upalabdhisthanam, in the Buddhi, Buddhao, which is the only place where you can gain this knowledge. Labdha, praptav, where you can gain this. Into that, activates all of the sukshma elements within the sharira and the sthula elements within the sharira. Hand can move, leg can move, we can breathe, we can taste, smell, etc. as well. We can feel, we can think, all because of this Hiranyagarbha into individual sharira. That Hiranyagarbha in the individual sharira is called Taijasa. Ya pranena sambhavati aditi devatamai. Three things are said here in this. Previously, he said Hiranyagarbha as a samashti sukshma sharira, which in the Vyashti form we saw as Taijasa. Here it talks about prana is a very important part of sukshma sharira. It is the only component of the sukshma sharira which continues to operate in all three states of being, avasthatrayi, Jagrat, Swapna and Shushupti. Prana will continue. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. That doesn't stop. So the prana is very important. So as prana hiranyagarbha rupena, pranena, sambhavati, it appears as, is born as, born is not a good word here. Aditi Devata Mayi, there are two more words here. Devata Mayi, all the Indriyas. Devata, as I said, is also, Indriya is also called Devata. And all the Devatas of all the Indriyas also are called Devatas, the presiding deities. So Indriyas in the Vyashti form and Indriyas in the Samashti form, presided over by specific Devata. Aditi Devatamayi. So Devatamayi, all the Indriyas and all the Devatas in the Samashti form also is part of Hiranyagarbha. Born of Hiranyagarbha. He is still tackling Hiranyagarbha, the Sukshma. And he also calls it Aditi. Shabdadinam adanat aditi. This is what Acharya says. The experiencer. Who experiences? The Sthula Sharira can't experience. Sukshma Sharira can't experience. Hiranyagarbha appearing in the Sukshma form ultimately is required for any experience to take place. Called Aditi. That Hiranyagarbha, as though enters into all the Sharira and then creates this apparently sentient being which can experience things. He who recognizes this Hiranyagarbha as not being separate from Brahman understands Brahman. Of the Hiranyagarbha which he understands to be Brahman, he is also got to understand, therefore, that that I had been thinking of as myself is also Brahman. That is the Atma that you asked about, He Nachiketa. That is the Atma. Etad Vaitat. So Hiranyagarbha is presented as prana, one very significant component of Hiranyagarbha, as all the Sukshma elements. You know, Tattva Bodha would tell you there are 19 Sukshma elements. Pancha Prana, Karmendriyas, Pancha Jnanendriyas, Buddhi, Manas, Ahankara and Chitta. All of them individually in each Sharira. And in the Samashti form, each one has a Samashti, and then together they form Hiranyagarbha. Just a way of looking at it. All of them. That leaves everything other than what I think of I. The body, mind, sense complex has all been taken away. That I is also Brahman. One who recognizes this, he is also Brahman. It was always Brahman, never different. It's just a question of recognizing that. That is the Aikyam all these Mahavakyas talk about. If you do an Anvaya on this, it will go something like this. Devata Mayi, Ya Devata Mayi, Ya Pranena Sambhavati, Ya Bhutebhir Vyajayata, Sa Aditihi. The one who recognizes Yaha, Kuham Pravishyatishthantim, Tam Vedasa Brahma Eva Veda, Tat Nachiketasa Prishtam Tattvam. Etat Etan Mantrokta Swarupameva. Why? Very nice. Etat Vaitat. Aditi, Acharya says, Shabdadinam Adanat Aditihi. Bhokta, experiencer. Aditi is one, literally it means the one who eats. From Ad Dhatu. Atti. Atti, Ataha, and Atanti. Adanti irkonu. Adanti illa. Adanti. So one who is experiencer of all Shabdadinam, Shabda Adinam, Shabda Sparsha, all of them. So Bhashyam we will read. Ya Sarvadeva Devatamai,
या
या सर्वदेवतामयी
सर्वदेवतामयी
Sarvadevatatmika,
सर्वदेवतात्मिका
सर्वदेवतात्मिका
Pranena,
प्राणेन
प्राणेन
Hiranyagarbharupena,
हिरण्यगर्भरूपेण
रूपेण
Parasmad Brahmanah,
परस्मात्
परस्माद्
ब्रह्मणः
ब्रह्मणः
Sambhavati,
सम्भवति
सम्भवति
Ya Sarvadevatamai, in the form of all effulgent beings. One aspect of it. Sarvadevatamai, in the form of all the one who is born in the form of the presiding deities of all of these, each one of these. Sarva Devatamika, Devatatmika. So each Sukshma element together of all beings has a samashti. So hearing has a samashti, sight has a samashti, and so on. So all these samashti have a devata, represented by devata. One who is really speaking no separate, no different from what we know of as Manusya, except for their extra power and extra knowledge in that field. And then together, all of them is called Hiranyagarbha. And here specifically, prana. Pranena Hiranyagarbha Rupena. In the form of prana. Although prana is also an element in the Sukshma group, it is treated separately here. In fact, there is a separate word for that also called Sutratma. Sutratma. All of them come from Brahmanaha. Parasmad Brahmanaha. Parabrahmanaha. From that Brahman. Parasmad Brahmanaha Sambhavati. They all arise out of, as though arise out of, same Brahman. So from Brahman, the Hiranyagarbha, which is the totality of all totalities of all the Sukshma, all the presiding deities, which is itself a samashti of each element, all of them born of Parabrahma. Therefore, Sarva Devatamai, that means Sarva Devatatmika Pranena Hiranyagarbha Rupena Parasmad Brahmanaha Sambhavati. So one explanation for this Devata, Devatamayi, Sarva Devatamayi, all samashti together, is all born of one non-divisible Brahman. And every time we say born of, we add as though. Because we're going to reject everything later. Shabdadinam
शब्दादीनाम्
Adanat
अदनात्
Aditihi.
अदितिः
अदितिः
Aditihi also defines as that which can experience everything. Shabda Adinam Adanat Bhakshanat Ada Bhakshane. One who is the experiencer. I think I am the experiencer. I am seeing, I am tasting, I am smelling, etc. But who is the I? I don't, there is no individual I. It is because of the presence of the Hiranyagarbha called Aditi. Therefore, the table cannot experience anything. No Sukshma Sharira, no Hiranyagarbha. I do. Now I understand that I experience dukkha and sukha. This is how I see the world. Whole series of dukkhas, little bit of sukha, whole series of dukkha again. Swamiji had a beautiful explanation for this, I remember in the class. Sukha and dukkha, which is what we experience all the time, whether dehadi sukha or manasika sukha or dukkha, we all know that when we have dukkha, we share the dukkha with all the other people in samashti. A death is considered dukkha. Death of a loved one is considered dukkha. We immediately gather all people close to us to share their dukkha. The shared dukkha feels less burdensome. Samashti dukkha. So every time dukkha appears, we try to share. What about shared sukha? You remember what Arjuna said to Krishna? Even if I win the war and I have the kingdom to myself, who will I share it with? This war is going to kill everybody. What's the use of having that sukha if I have nobody to share it with? A shared sukha multiplies. A shared dukkha looks as though it is less problematic. Therefore, our individual experiences, sukha, dukkha, although it is within the sharira of oneself, there is an empathy. There's a connection which we don't understand many times. So if we have something good happen to you, all your friends come and want to have a party. They want to share in that sukha. You want to share that sukha, but that way your sukha multiplies. So Swamiji had a very simple solution to all our experiences of sukha and dukkha in the jagat. His word, Ishvarize them. Bring Ishvara into your life. The beautiful expression of saying, when you have dukkha, you have sufferings, Ishvara, the samashti. Everybody is sharing the dukkha. Dukkha seems to reduce. Same thing with sukha. You have a little bit of success in this jagat, Ishvara is it. What a beautiful thing to understand. Karma Yoga tells us the result is not yours. You may have put in effort, you have to put in effort. But any sukha you get out of that is not yours. It is samashti. Any dukkha you gain is also shareable. Ishvara is done. Aditi is the experiencer. I am only the nimitta. This is all before clarity of understanding, which is when all the dukkha, sukha create a problem. Ishvara is done. Swami, you say this Shabdadinam Adanat Aditihi, when that we understand that expression, we have empathy. That is why in many of our prayers, you will find the prayers are almost never individually, gimme, 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 gimme is not there. It is in some form, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. May everybody remain happy. We can all share that happiness. Na prachodayat. Guide all of us to take the correct steps. There is empathy. We see even an animal suffering, it touches you. I had gone once to the Masai in Masai Maran in Kenya to see wildlife. And another group of people had come and they went early in the morning because that's when you get to see all these animals fully active. Or otherwise, during the day, they are either eaten and resting or not eaten and resting, but resting most of the time. So we came back and we were sitting together. We asked them to tell us what they saw. They actually saw a killing. They actually saw, I think, a tiger or a leopard or something chasing and killing a deer. Although they saw that themselves, they were actually low. They said, we came here to see this, but it's not a nice sight. We don't feel good about it. That's a natural order. A tiger or leopard is supposed to kill these things and eat. That's their food. And yet, we have empathy. Dukkha shared. So when you understand Aditi as the experiencer and I only as a medium, immediately our experiences get shared, both Sukha and Dukkha. Fortunately, Dukkha reduces, Sukha multiplies. So even before we have understood Etat Vaitat, it's very helpful. That Aditi, Shabdadinam Adanat Aditi. Aditi, he is the name. Sarva Devata Mayi, feminine. We don't distinguish he, she, it doesn't make a difference. That Hiranyagarbha, like in the previous mantra, Guham Pravishyatishtantim Tam Purvavat
Tam Purvavat
Guham Pravishya
Guham Pravishya
Tishtantim
Tishtantim
Aditim.
Aditim.
That prana Sarva Devatamayi Aditihi, as was explained earlier, because the line is the same, Guham Pravishyatishtantim, the same line. Purvavat, as was said earlier, Guham Pravishya, entering into the Sthula Sharira element, described usually as Guham Sharira. Pravishya Tishtantim, that which stays, and what enters in the form of Taijasa. Hiranyagarbha enters in the form of Taijasa into each living being, into the Sthula Sharira, thus making the Sukshma Sharira alive and in turn making the Sthula Sharira alive. Therefore, able to experience everything. Therefore, able to go through Karma Phala. That Aditi, Kvam Pravisha Tishtantim, Aditim, Tam Purvavat. Tam again feminine. That is what is described. Tameva Vinishashti, Vishinashti,
तामेव विशिनष्टि
विनिषष्टि
Ya Bhutebihi,
या
या
भूतेभिः
भूतेभिः
Bhutaihi,
भूतैः
भूतैः
Samanvita Vyajayata,
समन्विता
समन्विता
व्यजायत
व्यजायत
Utpanna, Utpanna iti etat,
उत्पन्न
उत्पन्ना
इति
इति
एतत्
एतत्
Utpannetyetat.
उत्पन्ने एतत्
This that you asked for, that is the Hiranyagarbha to be understood as non-separate from Ishvara. Where is all the I that I had assumed I to be all gone? The Sthula Sharira comes from the Hiranyagarbha, Sukshma Sharira comes from Hiranyagarbha, which although as though enters into that Guha, makes me sentient, makes me look like the experiencer. All that one understands. Tameva Vishinashti. This is what is described. This is what is described here. Ya Bhutebihi, Bhutaihi Saha. Bhutebihi is, why Shankaracharya is called it Bhutaihi is Tritiya Bhavachanam. Bhuta, like Rama will become Ramaihi, Bhutaihi. But here the mantra says Bhutebihi. Bhutebihi Vijayata. So Shankaracharya says it should be read as Bhutaihi. Along with the bhutas, elements, elementals, and all the organs. Samanvita is Saha. Ya Bhutevihi, Bhutaihi Samanvita. Vyajayata, Vipurva Ajayata, he was born. Utpannati, was born. Utpanna iti yetat. Was born from the same, and in all this you can add Iva, as though born. Sharira is born, along with all the senses, all the elements, because our understanding clearly is there is only one Brahman. From that Brahman comes Hiranyagarbha, from the Hiranyagarbha comes Virat, from the Hiranyagarbha comes all the individual senses and Taijasa, from the Virat comes the individual Thula Sharira, and when the Hiranyagarbha in the form of Taijasa enters into the Sula Sharira, you have what is called a sentient being. He who recognizes this whole thing and sees Brahman in everything doesn't see multiplicity. There's not different things. That is what you've been looking for. Iti etat. This is what it is. This is what that you ask about. What happens after death of the body? Nothing changes. Body goes. Sukshma Sharira takes a different form, enters into a different form of Sthula Sharira to experience different forms of karma phala. The body might become an elephant body or a mosquito body. And the Sukshma Sharira appropriately takes that form, as though enters that form, allows it to experience as Aditi. That Hiranyagarbha which is non-separate from Brahman, he who understands that Hiranyagarbha and that Brahman is I. He is Brahman. That is that Brahman you were asking for. He is not finished. This, how this is, once it enters, how it is preserved, all that will be shown in the next mantras. We'll also take up the Virat component of that, show how that is not different from Brahman. Very comprehensively tells us the answer to Nachiketa's question. We will see that tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Shanti.
Harihi
Namaste
Om
Swamiji.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha
Namaste
Harihi
Swamiji. Namaste.